Welcome back. Well, today we have Jonathan Adler, who is here on behalf of Concerned Citizens. Well, welcome. It's nice to finally meet you. I've heard so much about you.
And it's lovely to be back at this table.
Well, thank you. And a new table, too. I think it's been a while since you've been here.
It has, not that long a while, because I do this almost every year.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we see you guys, I think, twice a month, and you always have great discussions about things that are going on in politics. And do me a favor, tell me a little bit about Concerned Citizens before we get into all the other things.
Well, the most important thing to know is that Concerned Citizens is nonpartisan. And that doesn't mean the same as non-political, because a whole range of things are political, but we try very hard to be nonpartisan in the sense of, supporting candidates or parties or things like that.
Okay.
And it's dedicated really to providing interesting and informative and useful information through speakers and sometimes documentaries. And our annual Supreme Court talk, our Supreme Court term review, our 14th now.
Yes, and that's going to be happening on a Tuesday the 6th, and that will be, Tuesday the 6th at 7 p.m. in Clubhouse 5.
Exactly right.
Good. And we do have a little bit of information up on the screen, and I know it says momentous cases on the culture wars. Tell me what that statement means.
Well, that was mostly created by our speaker, who is a UCI law school, Irvine Law School, constitutional law professor, scholar, expert, teacher in con law, and discrimination cases, and reproductive rights, and gender, and LGBTQ plus equality.
Okay.
She pretty much designed that. And the word momentous is not hyperbole, because it is generally agreed that there just has not in living memory, since maybe the beginning of the New Deal, in the 1930s, that the Supreme Court has decided more highly impactful cases and contentious cases of that kind that really impact our lives.
Well, right, and I think that, you did mention here there were many cases, including the Roe versus Wade, which really turned everything upside down and people's opinions, and lots of women came out to vote this time around that may not have otherwise.
Lisa, before we get into that, let me say one more thing about Concerned Citizens and the Supreme Court talks.
All right.
Every 4 years there's a presidential election. I arrived here and in Concerned Citizens in '04, which was a presidential year, and we did a program of issues in that presidential race, just talking about the issues with another UC political science professor. But every 4 years ever since then, our Supreme Court talk has focused on the importance of the issue of the Supreme Court in the election, and what that really means is the importance of the Supreme Court and its cases and decisions on everybody's life, on ordinary day-to-day lives.
Okay.
So that's one of the things that Concerned Citizens has been really focused on presenting, is informing people about this very much overlooked issue of the extent to which the Supreme Court really impacts our lives, and therefore the extent to which the election, at least the presidential and Senate elections, affect the personnel who is nominated and confirmed to the court. So,
and that certainly did affect our midterms just recently, don't you agree?
And that, of course, gets back to the Dobbs case that you mentioned, which I think it was agreed played a very important role in these midterm elections. And so will some other very important cases that it has taken on for this current term, and maybe 5 or 6 others that it decided late last June.
Right,
so
right.
We can get into that.
Well, there's quite a few that seem to come down the pike. Tell me what you think about the leaks that happened from the Supreme Court decisions.
If I may, I don't think that's really very important.
Okay.
The Supreme Court does not have an ethics set of rules. Congress is debating whether to create one. Of course, it's not a good thing that opinions leak,
Yeah.
but I think that's kind of been a little bit of a distraction from the impact of the case itself. Trying to figure out who leaked and why. I don't. Well, it's interesting. It's kind of like a distracting issue.
Right.
But I really wish that people would focus on the decisions themselves,
Right.
done last June and already heard this term, and to be heard this Friday. Hugely important case that we can discuss, involving really the future of democracy itself.
Now, you say you call yourself a Scotus nerd. What is that?
No, a Scotus.
A Scotus. Oh,
I'm
said it
not
wrong.
Scottish. A Scotus nerd. That's Supreme Court of the U.S. Yeah, and I'm proud of that. I got to be that because I had the privilege of taking a wonderful con law course in college, and then 2 wonderful con law courses in law school with the really top professors of all of them. Really turned me on to the court, and that set me up to get, fortunately, a law clerkship at the California Supreme Court, and the privilege of co-clerking with Larry Tribe, Lawrence Tribe of Harvard. I taught him everything he knows. Wait a minute, that's not quite correct. He taught me everything I know. No, we had a wonderful time. And then I had the opportunity to lead a public interest law firm that did test case litigation and direct a clinic on constitutional litigation. So therefore, the nerd part is that I watched to see what cases the court is about to take up. The expression is certiorari, because when they take up a case, there have to be at least 4, often 5 or 6 votes to take it up. And the reason has to be that they want to change the law or extend it or resolve a conflict between circuits. So you know that something important has already happened.
Right.
And then I actually get up at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning to hear a 7 a.m. oral argument, which a wonderful website called Scotus blog is kind enough to host for a few thousand fellow nerds, and try to make judgments from that. And then I read opinions, and then I spout off about them.
But then, of course, you've got all of the folks who are part of the concerned citizens who look to you for this information, because many of them may not know it, right?
You are correct, madam.
So good. So they obviously look to you for information regarding many. I would think of the Supreme Court decisions too, like maybe they don't know about them.
Let me give you a little secret that not very many people know about, and that is that Wikipedia has the most marvelous summaries of important and semi-important cases that cover them from soup to nuts, from parties to facts to argument to opinions,
Right.
and they're really a lot of very expert people that create them. Right. So that's one of my shortcuts for not reading 73-page opinions in their entirety.
That's a good idea. And then you can pretty much have your own opinion, if you will, after reading that. So that's a good idea. Now let's talk about the confidence levels in our Supreme Court. Looking at the first chart you have here, this is by Americans as a whole. Doesn't seem to be so good.
Well, actually, it's extraordinary. The headline is that of the Gallup poll. Confidence in U.S. Supreme Court sinks to historic low. I didn't write that. Gallup did. And Gallup, for 50 years, has been asking the same question about confidence in American institutions, including the Supreme Court. So if there are questions, if you can argue with the way they frame their questions, but it's the same question year after year, and therefore the trend is very, very significant. And it is just amazing that in the last year, Americans' opinions dropped from what is it, about 33% down, 35% down to 25% overall, which is about one of the biggest drops in our history. And from 40% 2 years ago down to 25%, that's a huge drop in Americans' confidence in the Supreme Court. And that has also been reflected a lot in articles and discussions of experts, TV, commentaries, and also remarked in a very direct way by two of the dissenting justices, Sonia Sotomayor and Elena Kagan, in their dissents have made remarks about the legitimacy of the court and about the Chief Justice kind of losing control from having been the swing vote to kind of being on the edge of the very, very conservative other group of five who could carry an opinion by themselves. So that's part of it.
And then let's look at the next chart, which is by party. And so they've sort of divvied that up between independents, Democrats, and Republicans. Give me a brief overview of that.
Well, the blue line at the bottom is Democrats' opinion. And in the last year, it's dropped from 30% to 13%. The independents are the dotted line just above them, and it has dropped from 40% confidence to 25%, and that is a combination of those who have a great deal of confidence or quite a lot of confidence. And the red line is that of Republicans who pretty much stayed just about the same in the last 2 years. But you know, the significance of that is those who can't say that they have even quite a lot of confidence in the Supreme Court. Of Democrats, 7 out of 8 do not have that level of confidence.
I see.
Of the independents, 25% do, but 3 out of 4 don't. And even among Republicans, it's only every 2 out of 5 who do, and 3 out of 5 who don't have even that level of confidence.
Yeah.
So that is, I think, really a remarkable showing. And in the last 2 years, it's dropped even more.
Right, and it is concerning as you go forward, because we want to be able to trust our government as a whole and also the Supreme Court. So let's go back to your event information again. Momentous Cases on the Culture Wars. It's your 14th annual, and your speaker is law professor, U.S. constitutional law professor Courtney Cahill, and that will be on Tuesday, December 6th at 7 p.m., which would be tomorrow, and that is in Clubhouse 5. Now, members are free, and then you ask a $3 donation for guests.
That is true.
Fantastic.
So let me ask you, are you about to pull the plug, or can I mention any cases?
I am about to pull the plug on you
very
because
much.
you went a little over your time.
Okay. Well,
but I appreciate the information.
These are momentous cases. Let me just leave it there. And the one that'll be argued Friday, of testing the so-called independent state legislature theory, commentators have said they're most afraid of this in terms of its effect on democracy itself.
Okay. Thank you so much for
Get up at 7 o'clock in the morning and hear the oral
and
argument.
listen if you want to. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
If you want more information about anything we have discussed, you can contact Jonathan at 949-581-2178. We'll be right back.